well, if it wasn't for CrossFit, I would never have picked up on the weightlifting.
Okay.
And at the time, I was like, why not do both? Like,
Yeah.
you know, why would I not want to do both? Like, because what if one thing doesn't work out, or I have something else to fall back on?
Yeah.
And also, you know, you make up these goals in your mind that you kind of, as soon as you make those goals, you want to follow through with them. And that was something that, like, I was like, you know what, I don't know if there's other people out there doing the same thing, but I don't really care what other people are doing. That's something that I want to do. And so from that day on, I was like, I want to go to the CrossFit Games and the Olympics in the same.
Clair Toomey's Career-Defining Moment, Part 1. This video will discuss the career-defining points of athlete Clair Toomey. If you love the content, I've left a link in the description to my previous series covering Matt Fraser and Rich Froning. I hope you enjoy. Becoming a champion. Success is a journey, not a destination. The doing is often more important than the outcome. Arthur Ashe. Look back to any top performing athlete and see character traits that were developed, not adopted. The process that was refined, not provided. The ability that was fine-tuned, not inherited. The game plan rehearsed, not impulsive. These factors lead to someone becoming something. We all have the ability to achieve greatness, but these few are able to grasp the methodology spoken about above, combined with passion to become a champion. Clair Toomey is one of the greatest female athletes of all time. With success outside her favoured sport of CrossFit, she's an inspiration for both women, young and old. She wasn't, however, always the greatest female athlete of all time. And if any story is going to inspire you to fulfill your full potential, if any story is going to give you the drive, motivation, inspiration, or willpower, it's going to be that of Clair Toomey. This is going to be a 3-part series discussing the points of her current active career, where she's currently standing as the fittest woman on earth. Make sure to check out my website, any previous videos of Matt Fraser and Rich Froning, but let's talk about Clair Toomey. Tia's story, like many others, isn't a completely individual one. There are many pivotal people in a champion's life that are either assisted or are contributing to an athlete's success. In Tia's situation, that person would be Shane Orr. Husband and coach to Clair Toomey, he is responsible for Tia's success when it comes to her athletical endeavors. We'll touch on Shane more during part 2 of this series. However, it was Shane that was the one that was responsible for pushing Tia into starting CrossFit. Tia, already competing in track, needed some extra training to allow her to perform better in the other sport, using CrossFit as an accessory to that. Shane, at the time, was also playing rugby and needed CrossFit as an accessory to his sport. This is where the dynasty of Tia began. Being fairly new to CrossFit, only a few months into the sport itself, she competed in the 2013 CrossFit Open, ranking 5,934th in the world in the female category. That's not a bad start for your first year, since the Open in 2013 had over 45,000 females worldwide competing. 2014. In 2014, Tia placed 20th in Australia, 294th in the world, qualifying for Stage 2 of the CrossFit Open, known as the Regionals. At this time, there was only really one big-named athlete out of Australia. That was Cara Webb, now known as Cara Saunders, who dominated the CrossFit scene down under. Tia's first regional performance saw her finishing 18th overall, finishing within the top 10 in Event 1, the 1RM hang snatch. She achieved 155 pounds, or roughly around 70 kilos. Now, I know most average men struggle to even snatch that kind of weight. Tia competed alongside some of future Games athletes that we come to know, such as Maddie Sturt, Justine Beath, and Jessica Coughlin. 2015. The beginning of a legacy. Tia, like all other CrossFit athletes, began 2015 with the CrossFit Open, a 5-week competition to determine who qualifies to Stage 2. Unique to any other sport in the world, where everyone and anyone can compete alongside the best to find out who will be crowned the fittest on earth. Tia started off the Open well, improving on her previous score of 294th overall, bumping up to 64th in the world and 6th in Australia. But it was Tia's 2015 regional performance that got people noticing. At the start of 2015, Cara Saunders was the most successful female athlete from Australia, taking 3 third-place finishes and winning the overhead squat at the 2014 CrossFit Games. Cara made a name for herself as Australia's enforcer, being relatively fit, however incredibly strong. She had to withdraw due to heat exhaustion during the last day of competition, losing her podium contention position and potentially being the first Australian woman to podium at the CrossFit Games. So 2015 was a massive year for Cara to redeem herself as both a competitor in an Icelandic/American dominated sport, but unfortunately for her, it was not going to be her year. 2015 Open was underway, and Cara once again destroyed the Open in both the overall and in the Australian leaderboard, taking 2nd in the world behind 2-time Games Athlete champion Annie Thor's daughter. This leads us to the 2015 Pacific Regional. Cara Saunders, as expected, took 4 event wins, 2 events in the top 5, and her worst finish of the weekend was 11th. But unexpectedly, in her second year, Clair Toomey took 3rd at the Pacific Regionals, giving her a ticket to the 2015 CrossFit Games. Plenty of awesome events and a few debuts from both the female and the male CrossFit scene, as well as many of the top male athletes such as Rich Froning and Jason Galipa have now been retired to team competition, giving 2nd place finisher Matt Fraser and top athlete competitor Ben Smith an opportunity at the crown. Debuts from the female side include names such as Sarah Sigmund's daughter, Brooke Wells, Brooke Ants, and Kerry Pearce. And returning to the Games after missing out in 2014 was Katrin David's daughter, who failed a rope climb during one of the final events at the 2014 CrossFit Regionals. These women, combined with veterans who are currently in the sport such as Sam Briggs, Kristen Holt, China Cho, Cara Saunders, and Camille LeBlanc, this was going to be potentially one of the more competitive years when it came to the female side compared to previous years. And it definitely was. The first event at the 2015 CrossFit Games started with what would be traditionally known as an Australian-dominated event. Even though Jean Akoski clinched an event win with 42 minutes being finished, both on the men's and the women's side, it was all Aussies in the top 5. On the men's side, Calm Porter, Chad McKay, and Ben Gerard all took the top 5 positions of the event, with Chad and Noah Olsen having an epic sprint to the finish. On the women's side, Cara Saunders took the event win, with Tia placing 4th, to start off her CrossFit Games career in great positioning. Then, after a few average performances in the 2015 sandbag and the 2015 Murph events, Tia took 6th in the snatch speed ladder, further placing her high coming into day 2. With her performances being consistent over the course of the weekend, Tia, almost seemingly out of nowhere with 0 event wins, was in contention for the top spot coming into the final events of day 3. Potentially due to her avid running background, with great finishes in both sprint events, 3rd and 4th, and tons of event finishes within the top 10, she was on Katrin's heels coming into event 12 and 13. Event 12 for the female side was a brutal one. Remembering from my Matt Fraser video, these were the 2 workouts that defined a champion, created a beast, and allowed Matt to set a course to improve both athletic and mental fortitude. Even though, just as defining for Tia, this was not her time. After Pedal to the Metal 1, Tia tied 6th with 8 other women, putting a massive point gaps between her and Katrin, moving her within striking distance for first place. However, her performance in Pedal to the Metal 2 was what let her down. And we also had to factor in that Katrin had to perform poorly on the second part of that event for Tia to take the title. This also didn't happen. Not only did Katrin perform well, she won the final event by 9 seconds, making her the 2015 fittest woman on earth, giving Tia second place on her first year at the CrossFit Games.
Yeah, that does take something, like you do have to make those choices, and it'll be later, but it's like in this time of my life, this is what I'm doing. So I am getting in all of my training in the day, and that's like, it's not even a question if I am or not.
This was an excellent result, which many would feel content with, including Tia herself. And this is where I draw some of my comparisons that forged a bond unlike none other between Matt and Tia. In my opinion, Tia's 2015 games was almost identical to Matt's 2014 games. Rookie of the Year, second place finish overall, with some great performances and also some areas of improvement with potential to podium in the next year. Coming off the 2015 CrossFit Games high, Tia was now technically crowned fittest woman in Pacific, with her down under presence felt. 2016. The 2016 CrossFit Open commences, with some incredible workouts that followed. 16.1 was a brutal 20-minute AMRAP of chest bars, walking lunges, and bar-facing burpees. 16.2 was possibly one of the best programmed open workouts ever, with double unders, toes to bar, and an increasing ladder of squat cleans with a decreasing amount of reps. 16.3 was muscle ups and snatches. 16.4 was high rep handstands, deadlifts, rowing, and wobbles. And 16.5, well, for the average person, a bit more brutal. Classic CrossFit programming, 21, 18, 15, 12, 9, 6, 3 thrusters and burpees with no time cap. It leads to some longer times. But unlike previous years, this was not Tia's year of improvement. In the Open in Australia, she jumped 1 position from 6th to 5th. But in the world rankings, she dropped from 64th to 82nd. But as I and many of you are aware, most top athletes do enough, or what's required to make the regionals, where the training really begins to peak. The 2016 CrossFit Regionals was now a much more competitive, much more interesting regional when it came to the female side, especially since Tia had taken the podium position in 2015 and Cara took 5th overall at the Games, giving us a spectacle to watch each event that unfolded. Event 1 was dominated by Cara Saunders, with a 3-minute gap on Tia Clair Toomey and taking a world record for that workout. Event 1 was simple: squat snatch, increase in weight, 10-8-6-4-2. Cara made it look easy. Tia and Cara went back and forth all weekend. Cara just edging out Tia in events 3, 4, and 6, as well as 7 by a few seconds, and Tia taking event 5 in commanding style, giving Cara a 30-point lead finishing the weekend, with Tia taking 2nd overall. We got a bit of an insight of what CrossFit Games 2016 was going to look like. The 2016 CrossFit Games. The first defining point of Clair Toomey's CrossFit career, 2016 marked a massive year at the CrossFit Games, giving us a new fittest man on earth, Matt Fraser, who beat the previous fittest man on earth, Ben Smith, in a dominant fashion. However, the women's side, just like 2015, was intense. 2016 CrossFit Games started off well for Clair Toomey. The first 3 events, she had a 6th place finish in the ranch trail run, 3rd in the deadlift ladder, and 13th overall in the ranch mini chipper, putting her in great positioning going into event 4, the ocean swim. That was also to be Clair Toomey's first ever CrossFit Games event win. Meanwhile, Katrin, the reigning fittest woman on earth, had a great start to the weekend. Also, 4th in the ranch run and an unfortunate 38th in the deadlift, but recovering with 5th in the ranch mini chipper and 11th in the ocean swim, she was able to stay close to Clair Toomey. Now, these 2 women went back and forth through the weekend. Katrin putting up a well performance on Murph, scoring 2nd. Then Tia would put a great performance up in the squat clean ladder, getting 3rd. It all came down to the final event, Redemption. If Tia could outplace Katrin in Redemption by enough, she could win the 2016 CrossFit Games. It was definitely a tight race between Tia and Katrin. Tia took 8th overall in the event and Katrin tied for 12th, putting up the question, did Clair Toomey do enough? And by 11 points, Katrin won the 2016 CrossFit Games 2 years in a row, making Clair Toomey the 2nd fittest woman on earth for the 2nd time in a row. This time, just as devastating as Matt Fraser was after his 2015 defeat to Ben Smith, Tia assessed her performance and looked for points of improvement. One, the massive outlier was her mindset. Rewatching the 2016 CrossFit Games through the documentary brilliantly created by the CrossFit media team and the Buttery Bros, Tia's mindset was not one of a champion. Her mentality wasn't a killer instinct, and winning didn't seem like a reality to her, putting self-doubt in her performance. This, right here, was the pivotal point of Clair Toomey's CrossFit Games career. Realizing one of her biggest weaknesses and potentially the reason she didn't win the CrossFit Games in both 2015 and 2016, her mindset and mentality she had about herself and her performance in the 2016 CrossFit Games was about to improve. If she didn't make this pivotal mistake in her career, would Tia be as dominant of an athlete as she is today? It begs the question. But let's look at the way she came back and won the CrossFit Games. 2017. Dropping from 82nd worldwide to 18th, dropping from 5th in Australia to 2nd, Clair Toomey had a massive open improvement. 1 place behind her arch nemesis Cara Saunders, who seemed in peak condition to compete against the 2-time podium finisher. The 2017 CrossFit Regionals in the Pacific saw once again, for the 3rd straight year, a brutal competition on the female side against Tia and Cara for the contention of the top spot at the Pacific Regionals. The top spot for the men went to emerging games performer and loved athlete James Newbury, who was the closest Australian athlete to place at the CrossFit Games since Commando Steve finished 4th 2009 CrossFit Games. For the women, it was neck and neck between Cara and Tia, going event from event for each other. The race was tight, but after the 7th event, Cara reigned supreme once again, just by a 10-point margin, being one of the greatest regional performances from 2 females, as we were about to find out, would ultimately decide who would win the 2017 CrossFit Games. 2017 CrossFit Games began with the famous run, swim, run event, where athletes had a mass start, both women and men performing 1.5 mile run, 500 meter swim, 1.5 mile run. The men started at the front of the pack and the women were just behind. Of course, with any such event as this one that requires athletes to both run and swim, we as spectators don't really know who's in the lead until the emergence of the swim. From the men, Brent Fikowski, with his epic swimming background, emerged in the lead for the men's side, being in front by a large margin. However, tight on his tail was both Tia and Christy Eremo. Memories of Sam Briggs overtaking him on the ranch run in the previous year made Brent fear another overtaking by a female, making him constantly check behind him so not to lose his lead. Tia took first in the event by just 1 second over Christy Eremo to consolidate her third event win at the CrossFit Games, once again being another swimming or running workout. Tia started the 2017 CrossFit Games something short of extraordinary, finishing 8th in the cyclocross, 2nd in Amanda .45, 12th in the sprint course, and tying 2nd in the 1RM snatch. Even though at this time, Cara had a rocky first 2 events, her day 2 was unbelievable. 1st in the 1RM snatch, 1st in the Triple G chipper, 2nd in the assault banger. This put her neck and neck with Tia. And then the next few events left fans gasping. These ladies literally going tit for tat on events. Then came one of the most epic head-to-head events in CrossFit, Heavy 17.5. This event put Cara in the overall lead. Then came the Madison triplet, putting Tia back in the lead. Then the 2-2-2-3 intervals. Now remember this event, as this event is super important. This brings us down to the closest finish in CrossFit Games to date, the Fibonacci final. Now, unlike Matt Fraser's story, where he was in front by so much coming into the final event of the 2017 CrossFit Games, he stared, soaking in both the environment, the crowd, and smiling about his performance. However, Tia and Cara were both in the fight for their CrossFit Games career. This event swayed back and forth. Oh, what the heck, you can just watch the footage.
Now, who will have the number 1 spot? Clair Toomey, 6 points ahead of Cara Webb entering the event. She just needs to finish ahead of Cara. 5 feet remains. 1 year ago, Clair Toomey, the first person to be an Olympian and a Games athlete in the same year. She's struggling to finish it up. Cara Webb right behind her. Can Tia still hang on? They are neck and neck at the line to the podium. Cara legs are out.
And we waited. After a long pause and a ton of wondering, due to Cara Saunders finishing the 2-2-2-3 intervals 3 repetitions early, whether it was her judge or herself that miscounted, she was penalised. Clair Toomey had won the 2017 CrossFit Games 994 points to Cara's 992. And this moment right here is career defining for Clair Toomey. This is what birthed a champion. From someone who came from a running background, using CrossFit as merely an accessory to her training, to achieving 2 second place finishes and being the 2017 CrossFit Games champion. This moment right here was Clair Toomey's career defining moment. Losing 2 years in a row to Katrin, the final year merely just by points, and recognizing her mental flaws and fortitude. This is what defined Clair Toomey as a CrossFit Games champion. What defined Matt Fraser's career? I left the video series in the description, so check it out. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out my website, absolutebeast.org, and as always, you guys at home, stay a beast.
try, but try.